Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Back on April the 22nd, 1970, we celebrated the first Earth Day, and those celebrations have gone nationwide. And here in our area, we're going to have actually Earth Day has become Earth Week. And with me to discuss some of these festivities is Mark Donham from across the river in Illinois, well-known area environmentalist for many years. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Barry.
Let's begin with a little history lesson, since that is what I teach. The first Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970. Tell us a little bit about how that got started.
Well, I think there was a lot of environmental problems in the country that were becoming pretty obvious to the
There was awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah.
That was, it's all part of the back to nature, and there was a much more. I think anybody would say that the mood of the country was a little more activist back then. The Vietnam War was going on, and the college campuses were really buzzing with activism. College kids were being drafted was one thing, and just out of that activism, a growing awareness of being involved in their communities, people were organizing and trying to get something done. And one of the issues was the environment.
Mm-hmm. And you'd mentioned Senator Gaylord Nelson, a Democrat of Wisconsin, was a prime mover in this.
Yes, he was one of the early environmental leaders in the Congress, as much as you can call somebody in Congress an environmental leader,
Right.
But for a senator, he was really cared about the environment, and I think that was one of the impetuses in designating a day to really focus the nation's attention on the environmental problems.
Mm-hmm. We talked earlier that originally this was very much a grassroots movement, and then it went through a phase where corporations jumped on board. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it was just, the first few years that I started getting involved in actually doing something on Earth Day. I guess that would have been in the early 80s, really, was when I first started doing stuff. And at that time, there was still kind of a grassroots, some environmentalists getting together and maybe making some signs and having a rally somewhere, or holding a press conference or something like that to just try to bring attention to some issues. For example, we a number of times for a number of years, my wife and I reserved the state capitol rotunda in Springfield and went up to Springfield on Earth Day, and had events, and sometimes it was just two or three of us. And very interestingly, the state legislature was almost never in session on Earth Day. And so we would have the rotunda, which you could reserve ahead of time, and we would put our banners around and have tables, and people would come in and out. And but there's a press room in the Capitol, and so the press people a lot of times didn't have anything to do when the legislature wasn't in session, and it was Earth Day and nobody else was doing anything, and they'd come down. And a few times over the years, we got really good statewide coverage of some issue. And we give the governor an environmental report card, and flunk him on most of the stuff, and and the press would print it, and it would irritate them, but it was at least getting a little bit something a little bit kind of a firm sort of grassroots statement, and those were the kind of things that were going on. But after it started getting some publicity like that, then some of the big companies who were being criticized by activists like myself didn't like that, and so they all wanted to show that they were green also, and so they started becoming the Earth Day programs, and they would buy ads and say, such and such Acme, industrial production, the greenest company on earth, and we're going to have a Earth Day thing in the city park and give away our products and stuff. Things like that went on for several years. And, we got I got to the point where for several years I didn't really participate too much in Earth Day stuff, but I'm feeling it changing back more towards the way it was, and I've been more involved in the last couple of years again.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, one of the buzzwords now is green industry, green everything. Yeah. Being a veteran environmentalist, been doing this for years, how do you assess that in general? Is this sincere or is it just PR hype?
Oh, I mean, there are green industries. I mean, just like 2 or 3 days ago, the USA Today had a whole story about how in California they're starting to really get serious about doing the rooftop photovoltaic panel installations, and they're putting these covering these huge warehouses, huge. I mean tens and tens and tens of thousands of square feet. They're covering with photovoltaics in the States, helping, and Schwarzenegger's behind it, and those are you're not covering up the desert ecosystem, or you're utilizing existing space, and you're not having to build extra transmission lines much, and so those kind of things are obviously going to do better as a whole on the environment. So just like the recycling business that has been started here in Paducah.
Oh, yes.
Yes. That has improved the environment here in town, and they keep the more that people use it, the more services that they offer. So, yes, but there also are industries out there that, I think one could legitimately kind of scratch your heads and say, well, I don't know how green this is. The gray, the area gets a little grayer, and things like genetically modified plants, genetically modified trees, things like that. Well, the companies that are behind these may say this is green, and so you have to sort your way through all this thing like anybody. There is a lot of marketing that goes on to try to make companies look like they're green, because being environmentally aware now and trying to reduce your impact and counter global warming and all that is sort of hip, and it's global. Mm-hmm. And these companies that are operating on the international scale that have to do business with Europe, for example, they want to be able to say, look at what we're doing for the environment. So anyway, there is that definitely.
Well, are the environmental protection regulations stronger in Europe in general than they are here?
I would say yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But I don't, things like public lands, for example, and forest protection and such, I don't know. I've never been over there, but that land has been settled for so long, and industrialized and, made westernized for many more centuries than the United States mm-hmm. has been. So I think they may have manipulated about all of their land base at one time or another, whereas we still actually have some virgin land left, not much left in the eastern United mm-hmm. States, but a little.
Well, now up in your neck of the woods, in the Shawnee National Forest, is any of that virgin land?
Very, very small amounts, but most of it has been cut, at least selectively. There is some really good quality. Relatively speaking, the Shawnee National Forest, the mature hardwood stands are second growth. Second growth now is, if it wasn't really clear-cut bad, second growth can appear to be a really, fine, beautiful, diverse forest. Mm-hmm. But I did just read, something came out in the Science Digest this week that was kind of disturbing on that, which was that in the eastern United States, after 2 decades of an increase in forest cover, that we've now started going backwards again, and we're clearing forests for other purposes. So we're in the last several years we've had a net decrease in forest acreage, and so.
One of the things that I've heard talk about from time to time is green tourism, where you have an area that attracts tourism because it is a pristine wilderness, or at least close to it. Obviously, in our area, the land between the lakes or the Smoky Mountain National Park, rather than just go in there and cut all the trees down, this is actually a good lure for tourists and visitors.
Well, I mean, the Smokies, definitely. You go to the Smokies, and you get one of their they put out a little newspaper that you get when you go into the park. And a lot of times they talk about how bad logging was and how they saved the park by stopping the logging. But, and they actually tout that there's 500,000 acres in Smoky Mountain National Park, and 1/3 of those is basically virgin forest, and that's a huge amount of virgin forest. And you can walk through it, and it's mind-boggling. It's stunning. It's one of my most favorite places. But I wouldn't equate that to land between the lakes. I mean, land between the lakes, the theory of it when the land was taken was to return land that was settled into a virgin sort of a wilderness area, but actually it's still really highly managed by humans. They allow row crop farming and logging and.
But again, going back to the original purpose of that was, in other words, it doesn't seem to me that they're fulfilling the original purpose of this of this area.
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother show for
right. Exactly.
but I mean, I would agree with you on that. I mean, that's why I wouldn't equate that to the Smoky Mountains.
Right. Exactly.
But they're managed by two different agencies, two different departments. It's a difference between the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Interior, and how their mission as agencies and the departmental viewpoint of land. To the Department of Agriculture, land is for producing crops. Interior is more for preserving, and that really comes out when you look at the difference between a national forest and a national park. They're managed very much different.
Well, to shift gears a bit, what do we have to look forward to for Earth Day week festivities here locally?
Oh, there's some really, really interesting things. One thing that I've been involved in planning and am real excited about it is a film festival of environmental films that's going to be shown at Maiden Alley on Thursday night, Earth Day, at 6:30. And there's going to be a reception at 5:30, and there'll be some of the groups that are sponsoring it will be tabling. And I've looked at the films, and there's going to be actually 3 hours of films that come from the largest environmental film festival in the country out of a town called Nevada City, California, and it's called the Wild and Scenic Film Festival. And we went through all the movies that they offered and picked 3 hours, and we got some Patagonia Foundation has helped us financially to put this on, and we're offering it free to the public. And the films are really, really cool, and I think that they're high quality. There's a variety of issues. There's some kids' films. It's really suitable for kids, and so I really highly recommend, if you're interested in learning about some environmental issues, both from our part of the country and in other parts of the country and even the world, that you come down for free and watch these movies. It's going to be really.
Well, are they going to be shown in sequence or?
Yes, one time through the 3 hours. There'll be an hour and a half and then a little intermission and then another hour and a half. So if you only want to watch an hour and a half of movies, then you can come and watch.
And what are these movies?
Oh, there's movies. I mean, I like to. One of the ones that I find the most unusual is there's like a 7 or 8 minute movie of these guys that out in the Snake River in Idaho, and they put wetsuits on and they get surfboards and they paddle out in these big whitewater rapids in the middle of the Snake River, and they face backwards from the flow of the river, and they surf. And they surf on these waves standing still. It's the most incredible thing, and they can surf. Some of these rides can last up to 10 minutes, is what they say. And just to see, you can't imagine it until you see them out in the middle of this Whitewater River just surfing, and it looks like they're moving, but they're actually, when they pull back, you see they're standing still, and it's the river rushing below them, and they're surfing on their surfboards.
Backwards.
You know, so I
Yeah.
mean, so the films range from that, you know, the recreational, the natural recreation, to there's a story about some women in Kenya that were planting trees, and they got up against some governmental authorities, and they went ahead and were doing it anyway when the government was telling them not to. And then there's movies about local neighborhoods protecting their watersheds. There's movies about there's a movie about recycling paper that goes into the details about what all happens when you recycle paper. And there's just a lot of really interesting movies, all about different environmental issues, some about food production and water quality, and they're all really, really good movies, really well done.
Well, don't you think, well, going back to, I'm 60 years old, we talked before, I think people are a lot more environmentally aware today than they were when we were kids. I mean, you go back, I can remember we had a burn barrel in the backyard. We burned all of our garbage there. And things like that, people are, do you feel somewhat optimistic that people are better than they used to be?
Oh, people are, there's a lot more environmental awareness now. There's no doubt about it. And, you know, that's why a lot of these good things are starting to happen. You know, we have real serious problems, and, you know, whether we're addressing them fast enough or seriously enough, you know, it still remains to be seen. But there's no doubt that a lot of people are really, really concerned about all the reports about the climate change and, you know, just air quality, water quality.
Well, I was just, when you mentioned climate change, of course, global warming is controversial. There are people who flatly deny it. When someone says to you that it's not true, that this is not happening, what is your argument back?
Well, most people, most people don't deny that the planet's getting warmer. It's a little hard to deny it when you put a picture of Mount Kilimanjaro, 50 years ago and today, and it's happening all over the world where glaciers are melting.
Right.
But there are some people out there that say that it's a natural cycle.
Right.
And that they deny that what humans are doing is causing it. And I guess all you can say is that the weight of the evidence, to me, along with just common sense, tells you that we must be contributing to it, even if it is part of a natural cycle. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's, you can't, if somebody's convinced that this is just natural and that man hasn't anything to do with it, I don't know what you can do yet. There isn't any, like, it's just what you do is you pile up the scientific evidence, and then you have to choose yourself what you're going to believe in. And
mm-hmm.
And I think that man is having an impact for sure. I mean, just look how many people there are, and there's these big cities all over the world, and these buildings are creating heat. They're heating up in the winter, and I mean, it's these huge masses of concrete that are heat sinks, and I think that has a lot to do with it too. I mean, they say that the atmosphere is trapping the warmth, and I think that probably is true. That's kind of a physical effect. I think they're measuring that, and they measure it by the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which they started measuring in Hawaii since like 1953 or something like that. They've been taking these continuous 24-hour measurements of the amount of carbon dioxide, and that's just a simple physics. That's math. I mean, there's no, now what that means, whether that's causing the global warming, that's what gets argued. Mm-hmm. But the scientists say that that's what's causing it.
Mm-hmm. And of course, just to sort of put this in the broadest context, it always seems to be the argument, on the one hand, economics, on the other hand, environmentalism. How does the twain meet there?
Well, it seems to me like there's all these people out of work right now. So the society says, the government statistics tell you, that we got 9 point some percent of the unemployed that are actually drawing unemployment checks, and so many more percent that are underemployed or have exhausted their benefits to the point where we could be up at 20% or more of people that actually aren't working. That's a lot of people. So what do we need to have done out there in the world, and what so if we could choose activities that would reduce the impact of some of the industries that seem to be having the most impact, then it seems like you could put people to work doing things that would help improve the environment. And that would be a positive thing. And I think that the smart politicians are saying that. And it makes a lot of sense to me. I've always thought that the argument between the environment and jobs was concocted in order to maintain the status quo. The word, the economics and ecology come from the same root, eco, and that means home. And so, it's taking care of your home, and whether it's providing for yourself and then making sure that you don't mess it up too much, it's all sort of should be the same thing. It should always be intertwined and one contributing to the other, but somehow or another, this dichotomy has been created, and some interests use that to their advantage.
Also, and we still have some time, but I want to make sure we get in some of the other events of the week. I forgot about it. We did the film festival, which really sounds cool. That's great stuff. And what else? I believe there's some musical entertainment.
Some of the student environmental group here at the community college is sponsoring a musical concert, and that's going to be the 23rd at
Noble Park.
At Noble Park, at one of the pavilions.
I believe it's number 16. Maybe don't hold me to that, but I believe
it
is
the biggest.
The big one, right? Because
one.
they were. Someone asked. I heard, and this is Professor David Nickel, a good friend of ours, been on the program, good friend of yours too.
Yes.
And I believe he told me they were going to do that rather than the amphitheater because this pavilion is much larger than the amphitheater. So that's why they're doing that. And it's 3 hours or so, or what is it? The time for the concert? Do you know?
There's a number of acts, and including Lujitan and Highway 61. I think is on the schedule, and
there are posters around campus and around town too, by the way.
And I think it's all free.
Right.
And it's to bring awareness to the environment and Earth Day, and these two sort of art events that are coordinating with Earth Day, it makes me excited. And I think that maybe instead of having a demonstration or something, going out to the gates of the atomic plant or something and having a demonstration and trying to bring awareness that way, maybe through art, and since our community is trying to become an arts community, maybe I'm thinking it might be a better way to try to get the message out a little softer, a little bit more, art works in a different way than, say, just hardball politics does. And so I'm excited about it.
One of the films, is it one of the films about mountaintop removal?
Well, there's that's a separate event.
Please explain that.
And that is Wednesday, I think. Wednesday afternoon here at the university. Is it 1 o'clock? Did I see on the poster? And it's a movie called Coal Country.
Right.
Which is a movie about the mountaintop removal issue in parts of eastern Kentucky and southern West Virginia primarily is where most of it goes on. And it's a coal mining method where to mine these relatively thin seams of coal on the top of some of these Appalachian mountains, they just remove the layers as they
blow
go,
it off.
and they pour it down into the valleys below, and basically they destroy the mountains. And it's really controversial. It's become really controversial, and one of the biggest environmental issues in the country, and a lot of artists have gotten involved, and there was a CD made by a number of famous musicians for this film that shows that, well, and even Kentucky authors, Bobby Ann Mason has written in the New York Times guest commentaries about Mountaintop Removal. There's a Kentucky writer named Eric Reese who wrote a book, I think it's called Lost Mountain, about a mountain that he had grown attached to and watched it get mountaintop removaled away.
And we had David Cooper on the program a while ago talking about that, and it's incredible when you see these mountains, and we all know the Appalachians and beautiful forested mountains, and all of a sudden there's this moonscape. It's just rock. It's devastation. But again, that's where the argument that they say it's economics, that this provides jobs, and it's a good thing, and that's what the other side argues on this.
But the thing is about something like that is, once you remove the coal, it's gone. And they claim, one of the things that the advocates for the practice claim is that it creates level land, which is at a premium. But they did a study about a year ago of all the level land created by mountaintop removal, and it was very, very small, like less than 10% or something of the land that has been created. The level land through mountaintop removal has been redeveloped into some kind of economically viable industry or use. But the question is, are we going to continue with coal? Is that going to be our main source of electricity? And that's the bigger question.
In the time we have left, let's go over the schedule one more time.
Okay.
Starting with Wednesday. What are we going?
Wednesday afternoon, and I guess we could. I think it's I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think it's at 1 o'clock where they're showing the coal country somewhere here on campus. And is there a website?
There, of course, the college website. But let's be safe. Professor David Nickel, call him at the college, and he'll fill you in on that. So, but I think you're right about that. And
then on Thursday evening at Maiden Alley Cinema is the Wild and Scenic Film Festival showing of 3 hours of environmental films plus a reception that starts at 5:30.
And that's also free.
It's all free. And then on Friday evening at Noble Park is
the free concert.
The free concert of a number of artists. I think there's like maybe 8 artists. And there's going to be speakers, and between the bands, talking about different environmental issues.
And we'll keep our fingers crossed for good weather.
Yeah.
You never know this time of year.
That's true, but I think it's going to be pretty good.
Outstanding. I'm Barry Craig. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.